Good morning or afternoon, depending on when you're watching this. So I just want to give you a quick summary before we jump into this. So remember that Odysseus is explaining to the king, and he's talking to them about, in Phaeacia, what has happened to him, what his journey has been. So from this point in his story that he's telling to the king, King Alcinous, he is explaining his journey. He had just left the Cyclops and he's on his ship. And so this book picks up from that point. We reach the Aeolian island next, the home of Aeolus, Hippotas' son, beloved by the gods who never die. A great floating island it was, and round it all huge ramparts of indestructible bronze and sheer rock cliffs shoot up from the sea to sky. The king had sired 12 children within his halls, 6 daughters and 6 sons in the lusty prime of youth. So he gave his daughters as wives to his 6 sons. Seated beside their dear father and doting mother, with delicacies aplenty spread before them, they feast on forever, all day long. The halls breathe the savor of roasted meats, and echo round to the low moan of blowing pipes. And all night long, each one by his faithful mate, they sleep under soft-piled rugs on corded bedsteads. To this city of theirs we came, their splendid palace, and Aeolus hosted me one entire month. He pressed me for news of Troy and the Argive ships, and how we sailed for home, and I told him the whole long story first to last. And then when I begged him to send me on my way, he denied me nothing. He went about my passage. So this is the home of Aeolus, Aeolian Island, and you are correct if you read that and you thought, oh, did those daughters marry those sons? Yes, they did. He had 6 daughters, and then he had 6 sons, and they married each other. There's, this is like a weird island, and so this is where Odysseus stayed, and they took care of him for 6 months. And you can go ahead and add Aeolus to your character chart. He is important. So remember, with characterization, I want you to add things you know about them. So it can be facts, but it also needs to be things about that person. It can be that he's the son of Hippotas, but does that really mean something to us? Things that we need to know is that he has an island. He's a king. He has 12 children. He is very kind to Odysseus. That's inference. We're inferring how he was based on the way he treated Odysseus. Those are all characterizations. So make sure you include that when you're writing down characters and you're adding, because you should be continuing to add to characters anything new you learn about Odysseus, anything new you learn about Athena. You need to be adding those things. And they're also qualities about a person. Are they nice? Are they mean? And then go into detail with that. And so with Aeolus, I want you to do that as we go through here. Add them to your character chart and then add some things. He gave me a sack, the skin of a full-grown ox, binding inside the winds that howl from every quarter. For Zeus had made that king the master of all the winds, with power to calm them down or rouse them as he pleased. Aeolus stowed the sack inside my hold, lashed so fast with the burnished silver cord, not even a slight puff could slip past that knot. Yet he set the west wind free to blow us on our way, and waft our squadron home. But his plan was bound to fail. Yes, our own reckless folly swept us on to ruin. So I'm going to pause there. So Aeolus was in charge of the wind. Zeus put him in charge of the wind, so he could make the wind blow really hard. He could make it be really calm. So he gave Odysseus a sack of winds. And so he tied to the ships. They left the west wind first because they wanted the west wind to blow them eastward, which would be toward home. So that was the first one they let loose. But he said we knew this plan was bound to fail because of our own reckless folly. And what that means is their own poor choices would make them fail. 9 whole days we sailed, 9 nights non-stop. On the 10th our own land hove into sight at last. We were so close we could see men tending fires. But now an enticing sleep came on me, bone weary from working the vessel's sheet myself, no let-up, never trusting the ropes to any other mate. The faster to journey back to native land, but the crews began to mutter among themselves. Sure I was hauling troves of gold and silver home, the gifts of open-hearted Aeolus, Hippotas' son. So they actually can see Ithaca. They're close enough to the shore of their home that they can see it. And Odysseus becomes exhausted and lays down to take a nap, and the crew starts to kind of argue. The old story, one man glanced at another, grumbling. Look at our captain's luck, so loved by the world, so prized at every landfall, every port of call. Heaps of lovely plunder he hauls home from Troy, while we who went through slogging just as hard, we go home empty-handed. Now this Aeolus loads him down with treasure. Favoritism, friend to friend. Hurry, let's see what loot is in that sack. How much gold and silver? Break it open now. A fatal plan. but it won my shipmates over. They loosed the sack, and all the winds burst out, and a sudden squall struck and swept us back to sea. Wailing in tears far from our own native land, and I woke up at the start, my own spirit churning. Should I leap over the side and drown at once, or grin and bear it, stay among the living? I bore it all, held firm, hiding my face, clinging tight to the decks, while heavy squalls blasted our squadron back, again to Aeolus Island, shipmates rowing hard. So the shipmates are upset. They're like, look, there's a sack. What did he get? What did Aeolus give Odysseus? Didn't give us anything. So they open it, and it's the wind, which is going to come from the opposite direction because the east wind is in there. And it blows them all the way back to Aeolus' island, where they had just come from. One line I want you to write down is, there's a alliteration, and it is the line, a sudden squall struck and swept us back to sea. So you have the repetition of the S at the beginning of those words. So add that under figurative language to alliteration. We disembarked on the coast, drew water there, and crewmen snatched a meal by the swift ships. Once we'd had our fill of food and drink, I took a shipmate along with me, a herald too, and approached King Aeolus' famous halls, and there we found him feasting beside his wife and many children. Reaching the doorpost at the threshold, we sat, but our hosts, amazed to see us, only shouted questions. Back again, Odysseus? Why? Some blustering god attacked you? Surely we launched you well. We sped you on your way, to your own land and house, or any place you pleased. So they taunted me, and I replied in deep despair. A mutinous crew undid me, that and a cruel sleep. Set it to rights, my friend, you have the power. So I pleaded gentle, humble appeals, but our hosts turned silent, hushed, and the father broke forth with an ultimatum. Away from my island, fast, most cursed man alive. It's a crime to host a man or speed him on his way when the blessed deathless gods despise him so. Crawling back like this, it proves the immortals hate you. Out. Get out. So Allison, this is afraid that the gods hate Odysseus. Since bad things keep happening to him, they take that as a sign that the gods are angry with him. And he doesn't want to cross the gods. So he just wants Odysseus to get out and not mess with him. I want you to find, there's one more example of alliteration on this slide. I want you to find it, and I want you to add it to your alliteration under figurative language. Pause right here really quickly and add the incident at Aeolus' island to your important events. Make sure you add the details of what happened with the winds. Grown as I did, his curses drove me from his halls, and from there we pulled away with heavy hearts, with the crew's spirit broken under the oars' labor. Thanks to our own folly, no favoring wind in sight. 6 whole days we rode, 6 nights non-stop. On the 7th day, we raised the Lastrygonian land. Telepolis heights where the craggy fort of Lamus rises, where shepherd calls to shepherd as one drives in his flocks, and the other drives his out, and he calls back in answer, where a man who never sleeps could rake in double wages, one for herding cattle, one for pasturing fleecy sheep. The nightfall and the sunrise marched so close together. We entered a fine harbor there, all walled around by a great unbroken sweep of skyscraping cliff, and 2 steep headlands fronting each other close around the mouth, so the passage in is cramped. Here the rest of my rolling squadron steered, right into the gaping cove and moored tightly, prow by prow. Never a swell there, big or small. A milk-white calm spreads all around the place, but I alone anchored my black ship inside, well clear of the harbor's jaw. I tied her fast to a cliff side with a cable. So I want you to find at least one example of figurative language in this passage. And I want you to write down under important events this land, Lastrygonian. Obviously, you're not going to be able to spell that without looking at it. So write that. Please spell the land's name correctly. So look back in the text to write that down. And I want you to describe it. So it's where there's a very short night. It says that the nightfall and the sunrise are so close together. That means that there's a very short night. So it's mostly day. Think about like Alaska, how the sun is in parts of the year, it's light almost all day long. So it's like that. And then I want you to describe it, how people there, they take care of sheep and cattle, and they have a craggy fort, means there's rocks, and there's a lot of rocky places, and where you put the ship in is really tight together. So write on that description and describe this island, because this is going to be another important event. One more thing I want to point out. When he talks about his black ship, black is a word that is symbolic for something bad or evil or something like that. It doesn't mean necessarily, it's not referring to appearance. It's always used to describe an object. And it usually, if like the sky is black or an object is black, it usually means something bad. just traditionally. We've talked about this before in class, so keep that in mind, but that means something bad and negative. So as we go on, I want you to remember that. I scaled its rock face to look at it on its crest, but glimpsed no trace of the work of man or beast from there. All I spied was a plume of smoke drifting off the land. So if you see a plume of smoke somewhere, what that means is someone has a fire. It's like where you see smoke rising up, and so it means someone lives there and is cooking. Not like something's on fire, but a plume of smoke is a thin little bit of smoke, so it would be like from a chimney or from like a campfire, that kind of smoke. So I sent some crew ahead to learn who lived there. Men like us, perhaps, who live on bread. Again, I'm going to pause here. Remember, the gods live on nectar and ambrosia. So whenever they say men who live on bread, that only means they're humans. That's what he's referring to, and it's another repeated phrase. 2 good mates I chose, and a third to run the news. They disembarked and set out on a beaten trail, the wagons used for hauling timber down to town from the mountain heights above. And before the walls they met a girl drawing water. Antiphates, strapping daughter, king of the Lastrygonians. She'd come down to a clear running spring, Artacia, where the local people come to fill their pails. Add antiphates to your characterization chart, and you're going to fill in characterization as you find it. So descriptions of her, the kind of person she is, that kind of stuff. My shipmates clustered around her asking questions. Who was king of the realm? Who ruled the natives here? She waved at once to her father's high-roofed halls. They entered the sumptuous palace, found his wife inside, a woman huge as a mountain crag, who filled them with horror. Straightway she summoned royal antiphates from assembly, her husband, who prepared my crew a barbarous welcome. Snatching one of my men, he tore him up for dinner. The other 2 sprang free and reached the ships. So I want you to make sure again that you add Antiphates the king, and you add his daughter, who we don't have a name for her, but like I had said, add Antiphates. You're not going to have much information on his daughter. You have more on Antiphates. Make sure you add that. But the king let loose a howling through the town that brought tremendous Lastrygonians swarming up from every side, hundreds, not like men, like giants. Down from the cliffs they flung great rocks a man could hardly hoist, and a ghastly shattering din rose up from all the ships. Men in their death cries, hulls smashed to splinters. They speared the crews like fish and whisked them home to make their grisly meal. But while they killed them off in the harbor depths, I pulled the sword from beside my hip and hacked away at the ropes that moored my blue-prowed ship of war, and shouted rapid orders at my shipmates. Put your oar backs in the oars, now row or die. In terror of death they ripped the swells, all as one, and what a joy as we darted out toward open sea, clear of those beetling cliffs, my ship alone. But the rest went down in mass. Our squadron sank. From there we sailed on, glad to escape our death, yet sick at heart for the dear companions we had lost. We reached the Aeaean island next, the home of Circe, the nymph, with lovely braids and awesome power too, who can speak with human voice, the true sister of murderous-minded Aeetes. There is one example of a simile. I want you to add that. And we also have some phrases here that are repeated throughout all of the Odyssey that we've seen before. We have seen sick at heart. I want you to put that under repetition. We've seen it a lot. And I want you to start writing down phrases, and you can write down the figurative language of repetition. When you see phrases that are said over and over and over like that, go ahead and write that down. So we're going to put that under repetition, sick at heart. And then I want you to add to your characterization chart Circe, because she's going to have a big part, and that's your next major event. Also want you to pause here and make sure you add the event that happens at the Lastrygonian island, where the giants come and eat one of his men. They destroy all the ships that were with Odysseus except for Odysseus' ship. So now it's just him and the men on his ship. Before, there was a fleet, which means there were several that all went to Troy originally. So all those men are now dead. There are very few left with him. Both were bred by the sun who liked our lives. Their mother was Perse, a child the ocean bore. We brought our ship to port without a sound, as a god eased her into a harbor safe and snug. And for 2 days and 2 nights we lay by there, eating our hearts out, bent with pain and bone tired. When dawn with her lovely locks brought on the 3rd day, at last I took my spear and my sharp sword again, rushed up from the ship to find a lookout point, hoping to glimpse some sign of human labor, catch some human voices. I scaled a commanding crag, and scanning hard, I could just make out some smoke from Circe's halls, drifting up from the broad terrain through bush and woods. Mulling it over, I thought I'd scout the ground. The fire aglow in the smoke. I saw it true. But soon enough, this seemed the better plan. I'd go back to shore in the swift ship first, feed the men, then send them out for scouting. So I want you to write down one example of alliteration from this slide. And the men stayed on the harbor, so that means they kind of came into the part where there's not a lot of rocks, and they're coming up close to the ground, and they're resting there. Remember, I want you to write down the event that happened, every major event. So this next major event is at Circe's Island, and I want you to write all this down. So as you go, add more to your important events page. Odysseus is getting ready to send the team out for scouting, which means to check out the island and see if it's safe or where they are, what's going on here. I was well on my way down, nearing our ship, when a god took pity on me, wandering all alone. He sent me a big stag with high branching antlers right across my path. The sun's heat forced him down from his forest range to drink at a river's banks, just bounding out of the timber when I hit him, square in the backbone, halfway down the spine, and my bronze spear went punching clean through. He dropped in the dust, groaning, gasping out his breath. Treading on him, I wrenched my bronze spear from the wound, left it there on the ground, and snapping off some twigs and creepers, twisted a rope about a fathom long. I braided it tight, hand over hand, then lashed the 4 hocks of that magnificent beast. Loaded around my neck, I lugged him home toward the ship, trudging propped on my spear, no way to sling him over his shoulder, steadying him with one free arm. The kill was so immense. I flung him down by the hull and roused the men, going up to them with a word to lift their spirits. Listen to me, my comrades, brothers in hardship. We won't go down to the house of death. Not yet, not till our day arrives. Up with you. Look, there's still some meat and drink in our good ship. So Odysseus kills this stag, and he says that this is because of the gods. They sent this stag to me. So he killed it, and he literally carries it back himself. And if you know anything about hunting, that thing was huge. And he ties up its feet all together, his legs all together, and then pulls him up by a rope of twigs that he made. And he's carrying this stag back to the ship by himself. And then they'll be able to cook the meat. Put our minds on food. Why die of hunger here? My hearty urging brought them round at once. Heads came up from cloaks, and there by the barren sea they gazed at the stag, their eyes wide, my noble trophy. Though once they'd looked their fill and warmed their hearts, they washed their hands and prepared a splendid meal. Now all day long till the sun went down we sat and feasted on sides of meat and seasoned wine. Then when the sun had set and night came on, we lay down and slept at the water's shelving edge. When young Dawn with her rose-red fingers shone once more, I called a muster quickly, informing all of the crew. Listen to me, my comrades, brothers in hardship. You can't tell east from west, the dawn from the dusk, nor where the sun that lights our lives goes under the earth, nor where it rises. We must think of a plan at once, some cunning stroke. I doubt there's one still left. I scaled a commanding crag, and from that height surveyed an entire island ringed like a crown by endless wastes of sea. But the land itself lies low, and I did see smoke drifting up from its heart through thick brush and woods. So I want you to write down for repetition, Dawn with her rose-red fingers. We've seen this like every other slide. It's been constant because every time it's morning, they do that. And they're talking about how the night is so short, it's almost impossible to tell the direction of the sun rising and setting, which would have given them directions where they were. Were they facing east, west? They have no idea. So I want you to write those down. And then he describes what the land looks like and how, again, he sees the smoke, so he knows there's someone living on this island, and so he needs to go figure out what's going on and where they are. My message broke their spirit as they recalled the gruesome work of the last Trojanian king Antiphates and the hardy cannibal Cyclops thirsting for our blood. They burst into cries, wailing, streaming live tears that gained us nothing. What good can come of grief? And so, numbering off my band of men-at-arms into 2 platoons, I assigned them each a leader. I took one and Lord Eurylochus the other. We quickly shook a lot in a bronze helmet. The brave Eurylochus leapt out first, so he moved off with his 22 comrades, weeping, leaving us behind in tears as well. Deep in the wooded glens they came on Circe's palace, built of dressed stone on a cleared rise of land. Mountain wolves and lions were roaming round the grounds. She'd bewitched them herself. She gave them magic drugs. But they wouldn't attack my men. They just came pawing up around them, fawning, swishing their long tails, eager as hounds that fawn around their master, coming home from a feast, who always brings back scraps to calm them down. So the men are scared because they've watched all their friends die and they keep seeing all these bad things happening, so they don't want to go. That's why they're so upset. And then we have a really good description of what Circe's palace is like when they get there and all the animals outside. You also have a Homerian or extended simile. They came pawing up around them, fawning, swishing their long tails, eager as hounds that fawn around their master, coming home from a feast, who always brings back scraps to calm them down. Just explain that comparison. You don't have to write all those lines down if you don't want to. You can just explain what's being compared and why it's extended. Because it keeps on going. So make sure you explain all of that in your notes. So they came nuzzling round my men, lions, wolves with big powerful claws, and the men cringed in fear at the sight of those strange ferocious beasts. But still they paused at her doors, the nymph with lovely braids, Circe, and deep inside they heard her singing, lifting her spellbinding voice as she glided back and forth at her great immortal loom, her enchanting web, a shimmering glory only one goddess can weave. Okay, so this is a metaphor. It's comparing the immortal loom to an enchanting web. Write that down. Polites, captain of armies, took command, the closest, most devoted man I had. Friends, there's someone inside playing a great loom, and how she sings, enthralling. The whole house is echoing to her song. Goddess or woman, let's call out to her now. So he urged, and the men called out and hailed her. She opened her gleaming doors at once and stepped forth, inviting them all in, and in they went, all innocents. Only Eurylochus stayed behind. He sensed a trap. She ushered them in to sit on high-backed chairs, and then she mixed them a potion, cheese, barley, and pale honey, mulled in Pramnian wine. But into the brew she stirred her wicked drugs, to wipe from their memories any thought of home. So the fact that Eurylochus senses a trap, that is foreshadowing. Add that to figurative language. The men hear a woman singing, it's beautiful, and they want to go check it out, so they go in. Once they drained the bowls she filled, suddenly she struck with her wand and drove them into her pigsties, all of them bristling into swine, with grunts and snouts, even their bodies, yes. Only the men's minds stayed steadfast as before. So off they went to their pens, sobbing, squealing, as Circe flung them acorns, cornel nuts, and mast, common fodder for hogs that root and roll in mud. So she turned them all into pigs, is what's happened, and then she puts them in a pig pen, and she throws food at them that pigs would eat. Back, Eurylochus ran to our swift black ship to tell the disaster our poor friends had faced. But try as he might, he couldn't get a word out. Numbing sorrow had stunned the man to silence. Tears welled in his eyes, his heart possessed by grief. We assailed him with questions, all at our wits' end, till at last he could recount the fate our friends had met. Off we went through the brush, Captain, as you commanded. Deep in the wooded glens we came on Circe's palace, built of dressed stone in a cleared rise of land. Someone inside was playing a great loom, and how she sang in a high clear voice. Goddess or woman, we called out and hailed her. She opened her gleaming doors at once and stepped forth, inviting us all in, and in we went, all innocents. But I stayed behind. I sensed a trap. Suddenly all vanished, blotted out, not a one face showed again, though I sat there keeping watch a good long time. At that report, I slung the hefty bronze blade of my silver-studded sword around my shoulder, slung my bow on too, and told our comrade, lead me back by the same way that you came. But he flung both arms around my knees and pleaded, begging me with his tears and winging words. Don't force me back there, Captain King. Leave me here on the spot. You will never return yourself, I swear. You'll never bring back a single man alive. Quick, cut and run with the rest of us here. We can still escape that fatal day. But I shot back. Eurylochus, stay right here, eating and drinking, safe by the black ship. I must be off. Necessity drives me on. Leaving ship and shore, I headed inland, clambering up through hushed, entrancing glades, until I was nearing the halls of Circe skilled in spells. Approaching her palace, Hermes, god of the golden wand, crossed my path, and he looked for all the world like a young man sporting his first beard, just in the prime and warm pride of youth, and grasped me by the hand and asked me kindly, where are you going now, my unlucky friend, trekking over the hills alone in unfamiliar country? I want you to add here characterization to Circe because you have more description, and I want you to find 2 examples of alliteration on this slide. So Odysseus is going to save his men, and he tells everyone else to stay put, and then he runs into Hermes. And your men are all in there in Circe's palace, cooped like swine, hawked by Jowl in the skies. Have you come to set them free? Well, I warn you, you won't get home yourself. You'll stay right there, trapped with all the rest. But wait, I can save you, free you from that great danger. Look, here is a potent drug. Take it to Circe's halls. Its power alone will shield you from the fatal day. Let me tell you of all the witch's subtle craft. She'll mix you a potion, lace the brew with drugs, but she'll be powerless to bewitch you, even so. This magic herb I gave will fight her spells. Now here's your plan of action, step by step. The moment Circe strikes with her long, thin wand, you draw your sharp sword sheathed at your hip, and rush her fast as if to run her through. She'll cower in fear and coax you to her bed, but don't refuse the goddess bed. Not then, not if she's to release your friends and treat you well yourself. But have her swear the binding oath of the blessed gods. She'll never plot some new intrigue to harm you. Once you lie there naked, never unman you, strip away your courage. So he's telling Odysseus that he's going to give him this magic herb that is going to keep him from being transformed into an animal. And then he says, pretend like you're going to stab Circe, and she'll scream and she'll freak out. And then do whatever she says, because if you disobey her, she'll never free your mint. So you have to do whatever she asks of you, but don't be afraid. With that, the giant killer handed over the magic herb, pulling it from the earth, and Hermes showed me with all its name and nature. Its root is black, and its flower white as milk, and the gods call it moly. Dangerous for a mortal man to pluck from the soil, but not for a deathless gods. All lies within their power. Now Hermes went on his way to the steep heights of Olympus, over the island's wood, while I, just approaching the halls of Circe, my heart heaving a heaving storm at every step, paused at her doors, the nymph with lovely braids. I stood and shouted to her there. She heard my voice. She opened the gleaming doors at once and stepped forth, inviting me in, and in I went, all anguish now. She led me to sit on a silver-studded chair, ornately carved, with a stool to rest my feet. In a golden bowl she mixed a potion for me to drink, stirring her poison in, her heart a-swirl with evil. So write down one more example of alliteration on this slide, and then you have a metaphor, my heart a heaving storm, and you can explain in that section on your notes, explain what two things are being compared. And Odysseus gets there, calls out to Circe to come out. She brings him inside, and she makes him the drink just like she did for his men, and then puts her potion in it. And then she passed it on. I drank it down, but it never worked its spell. She struck with her wand, and now, she cried, off to your sty, you swine, and wallow with your friends. But I drew up my sharp sword, sheathed at my hip, and rushed her fast, as if to run her through. She screamed, slid under my blade, hugged my knees with a flood of warm tears and a burst of winging words. Who are you? Where are you from? Your city, your parents. I'm wonderstruck. You drank my drugs. You're not bewitched. Never has any other man withstood my potion. Never. Once it's passed his lips and he has drunk it down, you have a mind in you no magic can enchant. You must be Odysseus, man of twists and turns. Hermes the giant killer, god of the golden wand. He always said you'd come. Homeward bound from Troy in your swift black ship. Come, sheathe your sword. Let's go to bed together. Mount my bed and mix in the magic work of love. We'll breed deep trust between us. So she enticed, but I fought back, still wary. Circe, Circe, how dare you tell me to treat you with any warmth? You who turned my men to swine in your own house, and now you hold me here as well, teeming with treachery. You lure me to your room to mount your bed, so once I lie there naked, you'll unman me, strip away my courage. Mount your bed? Not for all the world. Not until you consent to swear, goddess, a binding oath. You'll never plot some new intrigue to harm me. Straightway she began to swear the oath that I required. Never, she'd never do me harm, and when she'd finished, then at last I mounted Circe's gorgeous bed. At the same time her handmaids bustled through the halls, 4 in all, who performed the goddess's household tasks. Nymphs, daughters born of the springs and groves, and the sacred rivers running down to open sea. One draped the chairs with the fine crimson covers. Over the seats she spread with linen cloths below. So Odysseus makes Circe promise, before he'll do anything she wants, he makes her promise that she will not trick him again. A second drew up silver tables before the chairs and laid out golden trays to hold the bread. A third mulled heady, heartwarming wine in a silver bowl and set out golden cups. A fourth brought water and lit a blazing fire beneath a massive cauldron. The water heated soon, and once it reached the boil in the glowing bronze, she eased me into a tub and bathed me from the cauldron, mixing the hot and cold to suit my taste, showering my head and shoulders down until she'd washed away the spirit-numbing exhaustion from my body. The bathing finished, rubbed me sleek with oil, throwing warm fleece and a shirt around my shoulders. She led me in to sit on a silver-studded chair, ornately carved, with a stool to rest my feet. A maid brought water soon in a graceful golden pitcher, and over a silver basin tipped it out so I might rinse my hands. Then pulled a gleaming table to my side. A staid housekeeper brought on a bed to serve me. Appetizers aplenty too, lavished with her bounty. She pressed me to eat. I had no taste for food. I just sat there, mind wandering, far away, lost in grim forebodings. As soon as Circe saw me, huddled, not touching my food, immersed in sorrow, she sidled near with coaxing winged word. Odysseus, why just sit there struck dumb, eating your heart out, not touching food or drink? Suspect me as still more treachery? Nothing to fear. Haven't I just sworn my solemn binding oath? So she asked, but I protested. Circe, how could any man in his right mind endure the taste of food and drink before he'd freed his comrades in arms and looked them in the eyes? If you really want me to eat and drink, set them free, all of my beloved comrades. Let me feast my eyes, so I demanded. Circe strode down through the halls and out, her wand held high in hand, and flinging open the pen, drove forth my men who looked like full-grown swine. Facing her, there they stood as she went along the ranks, anointing them one by one with some new magic oil. And look, the bristles grown by the first wicked drug that Circe gave them slipped away from their limbs, and they turned men again, younger than ever. Taller by far, more handsome to the eye, and yes, they knew me at once, and each man grasped my hands, and a painful longing for tears overcame us all. A terrible sobbing echoed through the house. The goddess herself was moved, and standing by me, warmly urged me, illustrious goddess now, royal son of Laertes, Odysseus, tried and true, go at once to your ship at the water's edge. Haul her straight up on the shore first, and stow your cargo and running gear in caves. Then back you come and bring your trusty crew. Her urging won my stubborn spirit over. Down I went to the swift ship at the water's edge, and there on the decks I found my loyal crew consumed with grief and weeping live, warm tears. So Odysseus gets his men freed. Circe turns them back into men. They're so thankful he saved them. And they're coming over and they're thanking him. And Circe is touched by this. So she's like, okay, go put all your stuff from your ship, hide it in caves, and get all the rest of your men and come back up here. And so Odysseus trusts her now because she can't break an oath, and she wouldn't. And so he went to get his men. And they're all upset because they think all their men are dead. But now as calves in stalls, when cows come home, droves of them herded back from field to farmyard. Once they've grazed their fill, as all their young calves come frisking out to meet them, bucking out of their pens, lowing non-stop, jostling, rushing around their mothers. So my shipmates there at the side of my return came pressing round me now, streaming tears, so deeply moved in their hearts they felt as if they'd made it back to their own land, their city, Ithaca's rocky soil where they were bred and reared. And through their tears, their words and winging home. You're back again, my king. How thrilled we are, as if we'd reached our country Ithaca at last. But come, tell us about the fate our comrades met. So I reply with a timely word of comfort. Let's haul our ship straight up on the shore first, and stow our cargo and running gear in caves. Then hurry, all of you, come along with me to see our friends in the magic halls of Circe, eating and drinking. The feast flows on forever. So I sat, and they jumped to do my bidding. Only Eurylochus tried to hold my shipmates back, his mutinous outburst aimed at one and all. Poor fools, where are we running now? I want you to make sure you write down the extended simile in this, the Homeric or extended simile, and the comparison, write down what the comparison is. And you also have a little bit more characterization of Eurylochus, so add that, and if you don't have Eurylochus in your characterization chart, make sure you add him and write down what you know about him. Why are we tempting fate? Why stumble blindly down to Circe's halls? She'll turn us all into pigs or wolves or lions, made to guard that palace of hers. By force, I tell you. Just as the Cyclops trapped our comrades in his lair, with hot-headed Odysseus right beside them all, thanks to this man's rashness, they died too. So he declared, and I had half a mind to draw the sharp sword from beside my hip and slice his head off, tumbling down in the dusk. Close kin that he was. But comrades checked me, each man trying to calm me, left and right. Captain, we'll leave him here if you command just where he is, to sit and guard the ship. Lead us on to the magic halls of Circe. With that, up from the ship and shore they headed inland. Nor did Eurylochus linger by the hull. He straggled behind the rest, dreading the sharp blast of my rebuke. All the while, Circe had bathed my other comrades in her palace, caring kindly, rubbed them sleek with oil, and decked them out in fleecy cloaks and shirts. So Eurylochus is mad, he doesn't want to go, and he's going against Odysseus, who is his captain, which is wrong, and Odysseus is angry because he's being disrespectful. But even when they go and leave, Eurylochus comes behind them, like he's scared, but he doesn't want to be left behind, so he does come. We found them all together, feasting in her halls. Once we had recognized each other, gazing face to face, we all broke down and wept, and the house resounded now, and Circe the lustrous one came toward me, pleading, Royal son of Laertes, Odysseus, man of action, no more tears now. Calm those tides of sorrow. Well, I know what pains you bore on the swarming sea, what punishment you endured from hostile men on land. But come now, eat your food and drink your wine, till the same courage fills your chest now and then. When you first set sail from native land, from rocky Ithaca. Now you are burnt-out husks, your spirits haggard, sir, always brooding over your wanderings long and hard, your hearts never lifting with any joy. You've suffered far too much." So she enticed and won our battle-hardened spirits over, and there we sat at ease, day in, day out, till a year had run its course, feasting on sides of meat and draughts of heating wine. But then when the year was through, and the seasons wheeled by, and the months waned, and the long days came round again, my loyal comrades took me aside and prodded, "Captain, this is madness." So all the men stayed there for a year, and basically partied for a year. They ate really good food, and they just hung out for a year. High time you thought of your own home at last, if it really is your fate to make it back alive and reach your well-built house and native land. Their urging brought my stubborn spirit round, so all that day till the sun went down, we sat and feasted on sides of meat and heaty wine. Then when the sun had set and night came on, the men lay down to sleep in the shadowed halls, but I went up to that luxurious bed of Circe's, hugged her by the knees, and the goddess heard my winging supplication. "Circe, now make a good promise you gave me once. It's time to help me home. My heart longs to be home, my comrades' hearts as well. They wear me down, pleading with me whenever you're away." So I pressed, and the lustrous goddess answered me in turn. "Royal son of Laertes, Odysseus, old campaigner, stay on no more in my house against your will. But first another journey calls. You must travel down to the house of death, and the awesome one, Persephone, there to consult the ghost of Tiresias, seer of Thebes, the great blind prophet whose mind remains unshaken." Okay, so he's asking Circe if he can go ahead and leave. And she says, yes, but you have to go to the house of death and see Tiresias, who is the seer of Thebes, which means he could see the future, but he has died. So they have to go down to the house of death, or Hades, where Persephone is, to talk to Tiresias. Even in death, Persephone has given him wisdom, everlasting vision to him and him alone. The rest are dead of empty, flitting shades. So I want you to go ahead and make sure you include that in your events, in your notes of events, how they're going to Hades. So she said, and crushed the heart inside me. I knelt in her bed and wept. I'd no desire to go on living and see the rising light of day. But once I'd had my fill of tears and writhing there, at last I found the words to venture. "Circe, Circe, who can pilot us on that journey? Who has ever reached the house of death in a black ship?" The lustrous goddess answered, never pausing. "Royal son of Laertes, Odysseus, born for exploits. Let no lack of a pilot at the helm concern you. No, just step back your masts and spread your white sail wide. Sit back and the north wind will speed you on your way. But once your vessel has cut across the ocean river, you will raise a desolate coast, and Persephone's grove, her tall black poplars, willows whose fruit dies young. Beat your vessel hard by the ocean's churning shore, and make your way down to the moldering house of death. And there, on into Acheron, the flood of grief, two rivers flow. The torrent river of fire, the wailing river of tears, that branches off from Styx, the stream of hate. And a stark crag looms, where the two rivers thunder down and meet." So Circe is giving him directions on how to get there, because he's like, I don't know how to get there. No one's ever been to the house of death before. No human, anyway. And that's what he means by on a black ship. He's meaning that there's never been a human that has gone down to Hades. How am I supposed to get there? And so she's explained to him how he can get there. "Once there, go forward, hero. Do as I say now. Dig a trench of about a forearm's depth and length, and around it pour libations out to all the dead, first with milk and honey, and then with mellow wine. Then water third and last, and sprinkle glistening barley over it all, and thou again and again to all the dead, to the drifting, listless spirits of their ghosts. That once you return to Ithaca, you will slaughter a barren heifer in your halls, the best you have, and a load of pyre with treasures, and to Tiresias alone, apart you will offer a sleek black ram, the pride of all your herds. And once your prayers have invoked the nations of the dead in their dim glory, slaughter a ram and black ewe, turning both their heads toward Eurybus. But turn your head away, looking toward the ocean river. Suddenly then, the countless shades of dead and gone will surge around you there. But order your men at once to flay the sheep that lie before you, killed by your ruthless blade, and burn them both, and then say prayers to the gods, the almighty god of death, and dread Persephone." So she's explained to him, you're going to have to offer sacrifices. So pour this stuff into this trench, and then slaughter these animals, and then promise when you get home you'll slaughter these animals. And Circe's explained to him what he has to do, otherwise then he'll be killed, and he'll be dead in Hades. "But you, draw your sharp sword from beside your hip, sit down on alert there, and never let the ghosts of the shambling shipless dead come near that blood, till you have questioned Tiresias yourself. Soon the great seer will appear before you, captain of armies. He will tell you the way to go, the stages of your voyage, how you can cross the swarming sea and reach home at last. And with those words, Dawn rose on her golden throne, and Circe dressed me quickly in sea cloak and shirt, while the queen slipped on a loose glistening robe, filming a joy to the eye, and round her waist she ran a brocaded golden belt, and over her head a scarf to shield her brow. And I strode on through the halls to stir my men, hovering over each with a winning word. Up now, no more lazing away in sleep, we must set sail. Queen Circe has shown the way. I brought them round, my hearty friends in arms, but not even from there could I get them safely off without a loss. There was a man, Elpenor, the youngest in our ranks, none too brave in battle, none too sound in mind. So go ahead and add Elpenor to your characterization chart, and you just had some stuff to add. So he's the youngest, he's not brave, and none too sound in mind means he's really stupid. They're also getting ready to leave. So they've had directions, they know what to do. Make sure you talk to Tiresias. The dead are drawn to blood, so after they sacrifice some of the animals that are on their ship, Circe tells them, don't let the dead near that blood until you have talked to Tiresias, because otherwise you won't get to talk to him. So he's all his directions, ready to go, taking his men out, and then we start talking about Elpenor. And so everyone was going to make it except for this guy. He'd strayed from his mates in Circe's magic halls, and keen for the cool night air, sodden with wine, he'd bedded down on her roofs. But roused by the shouts and tread of marching men, he leapt up with a start at dawn. But still so dazed, he forgot to climb back down again by the long ladder. Head first from the roof he plunged, his neck snapped from the backbone, his soul flew down to death. Once on our way, I gave them in their orders. So this guy was on the roof, sleeping, and he got so confused by everyone getting ready and going out, and there was noise and people walking around, that he jumped up, forgot to climb down the ladder, jumped off the roof, and fell and broke his neck. And he died. You think we are headed home or to our own dear land? Well, Circe sets us a rather difficult course. Down to the house of death, and that awesome one, Persephone, there to consult the ghost of Tiresias, seer of Thebes. So I said, and it broke my shipmates' hearts. They sank down on the ground, moaning, tore their hair, but it gained us nothing. What good can come of grief? Back to the swift ship at the water's edge we went, our spirits deep in anguish, faces what with tears. But Circe got to the dark hull before us, tethered a ram and black ewe close by, slipping past unseen. Who can glimpse a god who wants to be invisible, gliding here and there? So Circe ties these animals to the ship and hides them there for Odysseus. And Odysseus breaks the news to his men, we're going to have to go to Hades, and they're all very upset because they just want to get home.